story of the 1976 season and the Hunt-Lauda rivalry is one of those narratives that is so remarkable that you could only do it if it is true, because people wouldn't quite believe it. And it's got that many sort of twists and turns and that much drama in it.
They're absolutely side by side, wheel to wheel, so evenly matched. Fantastic battle between these two great drivers.
I live in Vienna and I know Niki Lauda. He's a friend of my wife's, and so I'd spent some time with him and I was always quite interested in him as a character. And James Hunt, I knew, I was 13 when he won the World Championship, and I always knew that he was a flamboyant ladies' man, glamorous. And Niki, now that I met him, I knew he was a lot of the opposites, and that, for a dramatist, suddenly becomes quite interesting when you realise you've got a real yin and yang situation dramatically as characters.
Peter Morgan, who wrote The Queen, Last King of Scotland, also wrote Frost Nixon, the play, and then adapted the movie version, which I directed, and we remained friends. And I asked him what he was doing. He said, well, I'm writing a script, and this won't mean anything to you or be very interesting, but it's about these two Formula One racers. And I said, well, really, I don't know too much about Formula One, but who are they? And he started telling the story of these two guys, Niki Lauda and James Hunt, and I was hooked.
Peter Morgan approached me with the idea to make a movie out of that particular year, and he asked me if I could help him to tell him basically what happened and then give him the background of his knowledge about that season.
I told him about Ron Howard, and we introduced to one another, and I showed him Frost Nixon, and so he then sort of engaged, because a lot of people had tried to do a story about Niki, and what was the breakthrough for him was that it was a story about Niki and James, and he thought that was much more interesting.
When Peter wrote the script, we had a lot of discussions about the Hollywood movie and the reality, and I always brought him back to the reality, what really happened.
He was incredibly helpful, and he was a joy to work with. We met on an almost weekly basis for a while, and I would read him scenes and he would correct them, and I would listen to how he talked so I would get his dialogue exactly right, which was a real privilege.
To be a champion, it takes more than just being quick. It's the whole picture. You're just the charger and the party guy. That's why everybody likes you.
Try saying that and tell me you're not jealous.
Why would I be jealous? Don't think about it. All that affection, all those smiles, is a sign of their disrespect. They don't fear you.
Peter's able to sort of study somebody and get so microscopic that he can see the pores in their skin. So, and he did that really well in Frost Nixon, and he does this extremely well here. And I mean, he's, at the top of his art form.
Normally in films you have to embellish things to make them film-worthy, and in 1976 season it's the opposite. You have to tone things down because there was so much going on. And we, Ron and I did our best to navigate our way through that.
Whether it's intense and dramatic or unexpectedly funny, Peter Morgan always strives to entertain. There's a wit in Peter Morgan's writing, a kind of a accessible yet sophisticated insight into the characters, and so the scenes he writes are rich in character and engrossing and a blast to direct. For me, it always boils down to the characters. The world of Formula One is fantastic, but really at the center of it is these two fascinating individuals. As somebody who loves to make movies that are driven by character and direct actors to give wonderful performances, this was a really rare, wonderful opportunity. And action! Peter Morgan had written the script, and he knows Niki Lauda well, and he nominated Daniel Brühl for Niki Lauda.
I asked people, childhood friends of Niki's and people in our business, and I said, give me some names of actors that could play Niki. And I got 3 or 4 names, and I checked them out on the internet, and I said, wow, this is the one.
I was sent the script, and my first reaction was a bit of fear, because I thought, how could I possibly play Niki Lauda? It's a guy who's so different to me. Also, because it's strange to play somebody who's famous and who is alive. But I love the script, I love the part, of course, so yeah, I was eager to get the part, but I really didn't expect it.
The tougher question was James Hunt, very well known, especially in the UK, certainly all around F1, a big presence. Who's going to play him? Chris Hemsworth was doing Avengers, and I couldn't figure out a way to meet and talk about the movie. And I was talking to his agent. I said, I just don't know. I need to audition him or something, you know. And he's an interesting candidate, and you know, and he's too big to look like a Formula One driver. And although he's the same height as James Hunt, interesting. Well, anyway, about 36 hours later, I got a scene, and Chris, on his own, had put together a little audition piece. You know, he looked at James Hunt on YouTube. He took a line or two from the script and nailed this audition. And he completely won the role.
I've sent audition tapes before, but I was right in the middle of shooting at the time. And normally, unless it was something like this project and someone like Ron, I probably wouldn't have done it, you know. And also, there's that fear of, what if it's not very good, and it's probably better to meet him, or it's probably better to do this. And this was one of those times where I thought, you just got to be proactive with it, and and throw yourself in there, and a bit like that was James's attitude, he sort of wanted something to go for it.
So when do we start?
Yes. Soon as we're ready.
Ready? I've been waiting for this my whole life.
I've been blown away by the success of his transformation, and he lost a lot of weight. He was much more bulked up from playing the superheroes, from playing Thor and so forth. He had to lose a lot of weight very quickly, and he was amazingly good about that. And he looks, when you put the pictures side by side, they look amazing.
The casting is really good. The physicality is almost laughably good. Chris looks like James is the right size, right color, body language, everything is almost eerie. He's got it really good.
Speaking with people who knew him, there's quite a varied opinions on him, and I think that was what was so fascinating about him. He wasn't sort of in black and white with things. There was a few contradictions there, which makes for an interesting character to play.
What were you hoping for, anyway? A well-adjusted knight in shining armor?
No danger of that.
Let me give you some advice.
I'm all ears.
Don't go to men who are willing to kill themselves driving in circles looking for normality.
That was like, to me, this remarkable gift, going from, well, I love the movie, but who's James Hunt, to, wow, I've got the perfect Niki Lauda and the perfect James Hunt and a great script. It was sort of one of those remarkable moments where what ought to have been the challenge that would threaten to undo the whole enterprise actually came together over a period of about 10 days.
One crucial thing was to meet Niki. That was something that I wanted to do. And knowing that Niki is very frank and very honest, I thought, hopefully he's gonna like me, and hopefully we get along with each other well. So he called me one day and invited me to come over to Vienna. But then he said, yeah, just bring hand luggage. In case we don't like each other, you can fly back to Berlin. I thought, whoa, that's a good start.
I really liked the guy from the first day on. Not a typical actor, nose up and crazy. He was a down-to-earth, real talented guy. Then I took him to Brazil for the race end of last year. Just invited him so he sees the life of today and then compare it back to the 70s. And I think he liked it.
Daniel literally had Niki on his speed dial. And we'd be getting ready to do something and wondering about, the steps that needed to be taken to be authentic. And right up to the moment we'd be rolling the camera, Daniel would be on the phone talking to Niki. And he would, we would get the terminology, we would get the behavior, we'd get the attitude just right.
I have the track record here. I'm the only person in history to do the ring in under 7 minutes. So actually, it's to my advantage to race here today, because I'm quicker than all of you.
I asked him, is it difficult to play me? And he said, yes, because you are alive and you are known through television and other things. So people know how you talk and what you do. So it's very difficult for me to really play you. And this is his challenge. So he came to Vienna to get the Austrian language taught and my way of talking English, and I think he did a very good job to really be the real Niki Lauda.
Look at us. We're both a pair of kids when we met. Hot-headed jerks in Formula 3. Disowned by our families. Headed nowhere. And now we're both champions of the world. It's not bad, huh?
Even lifelong friends and family members of Niki's have heard Daniel's voice, and they asked me, did Niki do the voiceover? And we said, no, that's Daniel. And they said, that's just terrifying. It's so close and it's so accurate and it's so forensic. Technically, it's an astonishing performance.
This skin graft operation, they put half my right thigh in my face. It doesn't look too good, but one unexpected advantage is it's impossible to perspire through skin graft, so sweat will never run into my eyes again, which is good for a driver.
It's always challenging to find two people that can compete with one another, that can raise each other's game, not only in the film as characters, but on the set. And these two actors, really talented and confident within their art form, and are able to raise each other's game and challenge each other for their best performance.
These two guys, Niki Lauda and James Hunt, were so colorful, so dynamic. You know, they're both fascinating, they're funny, they're serious and smart and formidable, and it made for some strong acting moments and some fun cinematic opportunities too.
Hey, asshole! I had that corner.
What, do you mean the one that you spun out of and finished facing the other way? I think that corner had you.
That move was total suicide. But if I hadn't braked, we'd have crashed.
Well, no, but we didn't, did we? Thanks to your impeccable survival instincts.
Fuck you! What's your name?
Hunt. It rhymes with...
God!
It really is about getting to the heartbeat of these characters and also put the audience in the cockpit. I wanted to make it as intimate an experience, viewing experience for the audience as possible.
It's a really big challenge, I think, when you're covering anything that's covered, like Formula One is on television, where the technology's become really advanced. So you have to take that as your starting point and then say, well, we have to do that, but then we have to do something else. Cinema has to do something that can only be done in cinema. So we're trying lots of ideas of trying out different ways of shooting the cars and trying to capture the energy and the excitement that you get from racing.
I had to find a way technically of depicting the speed. I wanted to really personify these cars, and I wanted to be inside the cars, locking cameras onto the cars so you actually feel you're part of the body. So I think that's where the audience really feel they're traveling at speed. So I spent a lot of time in prep and a lot of thought trying to work out how to find the technology to do that.
Anthony Dodd Mantle is remarkably inventive and bold, and he was really up for this challenge, so we were really getting cameras in places that they just haven't been before, and finding ways to actually put them out on the track and watch them run.
I've never had so many lenses out in my life, but they're all over the place, on the cars and under the cars and up the hose pipes and on the roof and underneath the roof.
He's using these tiny little cameras and he's mounting them remotely in places where normally you could never ever have a camera. He's taking us on a journey that will take us closer to the danger, take us closer to the drama, take us closer to the excitement.
It's not just the cars themselves and popping in the motors and around the cars and the wheels, it's also going inside their heads as much as possible, which is POVs, but it's also this locked-in camera on the side of the visor where you see the world blasting past them.
It's an interesting thing to work because it's quite heavy on one side and then they have to weight the other side of it. So then you've got this great amount of sort of weight on your head, but yeah, it's right in there on the eyeball and, you know, little, your pupil shifting in and out and little bits of light that it catches. It's a pretty impressive shot.
Anthony is one of the most innovative cinematographers today, and I lost count of 10, but apparently we have 30 cameras on the set today, shooting all different environments and different pieces of the cars, the drivers, the set, etc. So you're getting a view of Formula One in a way that nobody's ever seen before.
I drive this beast, which is known as the Evo 8 tracking car. The car itself has been up-rated horsepower-wise. I think we've got about 290 horsepower, and we can do up to 150 miles an hour if required.
It's a nasty piece, fastest in Europe. Yeah, they burn the clutch out like every second week.
It's four-wheel drive, which gives us an added advantage over most tracking vehicles, and we have various settings in the car, including a snow setting, which means that we get equal distribution of power to front and rear axle, which is not terribly good for the car, but it does give you that extra bit of grip on the tricky surfaces.
How tight do you want me to get up to it?
It'd be nice to lunge up, like you're trying to, you know, and then sort of get pushed back, you know.
Okay, so all the bend is good.
Yeah.
So, as we come around that corner, Hunt's out front, Lauda comes up behind, pulls out, so they go side by side down the straight. There is a B camera here, the crane is here. As you approach the bridge, Lauda pulls in behind Hunt, they go around the corner as close as safely possible, all the way around, seeing Hunt now start to pull away. Everybody else is behind, jostling for position.
Laying out the racing sequences for this film has turned out to be quite a challenge because you can very quickly find yourself with people driving round and round and not effectively telling a story.
Once you've got that, if you think you've done it, then you can
then get over here. And breaking down the sequences so that they really do move the story forward and the races become exciting character-driven pieces has proven to be a real challenge.
It was really exciting to keep trying to be both macro and micro about this whole thing. Again, all in the spirit and the name of just trying to let the audience understand what the sport was and kind of put them in the driver's seat.
Here we are, Blackbush, which is we're about an hour from London.
Where we're trying to do Grand Prix from Germany,
South Africa,
Brazil,
America,
Japan,
Italy,
Belgium,
Spain.
All in one location.
Basically, we've traveled the world. There's a little bit of Blackbush in just about every portion of the movie.
Blackbush is a disused airport. Essentially, we've built a modular pit lane and track beside it with grandstand, and for each race we change the cladding, we change the structure of it and advertising, and we're able to get a whole season's racing, as it were, out of it in one spot.
Blackbush kind of became our back lot. Of course, we're going to get some computer help, some digital help, but the art department's, I think, done a fantastic job. So has everyone else, and it really has fallen on the shoulders of all involved to be as detailed as possible. The small details almost sell a cultural idea, an environmental idea, almost as much or maybe more than, you know, some mountains in the background or the right kind of set.
A lot of Grand Prix circuits do look pretty much the same, but the detail, the way the pits are laid out, where the grandstands are, those are different at every place. So it's quite a challenge to make that work. It's amazing how different uniforms and costumes from different countries do actually make a difference in that.
Of course, Formula One is so much about crossing cultures, traveling the world, that, you know, you want all of that flavor, you want to be specific. So it's been really, really a fun exercise. And I think that while it's challenging for everybody, when you see the scenes cut together, it's really gratifying to see that you actually can create these different environments. Rush is a great character-driven story with these two fantastic individuals. But there's also the character, and it is a sort of a character in the movie, of the 70s. The great thing about Formula One in this era is that it was glamorous, it was high profile, it was highly photographed. And so all we tried to do is rigorously recreate the world as much as we could.
There's just masses of reference. It just seemed like when I first went to the production office, there was just so much information, so many photographs. And I think that is phenomenal for us. It's almost like overload, but it's all there. So there was no excuse to get it wrong.
We had a fantastic research and prep period where we were looking at rock and roll documentaries and fashion photo shoots and things like that as much as we were looking at F1. We were trying to understand this 70s aesthetic from a hair and makeup standpoint, production design standpoint, of course, wardrobe. So this feeling of the 70s was something that we really wanted to inject into the DNA of the movie.
Everybody's got their opinion of what the 70s looked like. You've got the sort of very sort of fancy dress, sort of paisley patterns, big collars. And when you actually really look at the pictures of the 70s, yes, there was that, but there was also a very normal side to it.
It's an era that often comes in sort of more comedy, sort of 70s comedy. It's very easy to make it look a bit silly. So I think trying to grab the sort of realistic, the most realistic approach to it, and that feeling of like any era, you get those people who look incredibly 70s, and you get people who are just sort of ordinary. And it's kind of trying to amalgamate them all together to be this wonderful backdrop to support all our leading artists. The end of the 70s was my sort of beginning of my day as such, and so I do remember it, you know, and I it's a really useful thing. I've been able to sort of think, gosh, that's historical now, but I was there.
It definitely rings some bells, and I feel like we are getting it right. And I'm not the only one from that, you know, who knows something about that period working on the movie. But it is interesting when you focus on it and you begin to realize that, you know, man, you know, there are a lot of things that are the same, but a hell of a lot of things are significantly different. And it informs really just about every moment in the movie. And that's a little surprising. Doesn't seem that long ago, but it's far enough back that it really matters.
I think every actor wants to do a period piece, and every actor wants to do a 70s movie. There aren't enough good ones. And certainly Ron Howard, as he showed in Frost Nixon, really knows how to capture the 70s, bad hair and all.
That's why I love my job, because sometimes we can time travel. If you forget the camera and crew members for a while, and especially when you shoot wide shots, and you just look at what is there, and you really dive into that period. And there were some moments where it was totally the 70s.
You really want to show quality for these guys. So we've got two major fashion houses involved. Gucci, who provided the clothes for Chris Hemsworth and Olivia Wilde, and Ferragamo, who provided the clothes for Daniel Brühl and Alexandra Maria Lara. Both brands fit the characters. Gucci really fits James Hunt, and Ferragamo really suits Niki Lauda.
It's been great. I mean, this is one of James's Gucci jackets, which, you know, apparently was designed around something they had back then. It's great. I think the fashion was far more interesting in the 70s than it is now. It's pretty safe and sanitized, you know, whereas back then it was big collars, big flares, colors, you know. It was indulgent like everything else, and I think we should bring it back.
When you get to cherry pick from any era with the fashions, the music, the styles, the personalities, then you tend to pick the most interesting parts. But looking at the costumes on the set that we have, and even the hairstyles, you look back at it from this distance, it seems quite cool.
Putting on a pair of denim flares that I'm wearing today, you could literally sail a yacht with the amount of material I've got dangling from my legs. And it's thick denim. I mean, this stuff is you could build a house with it. And all the women around with very little on, you do feel you're in a different era altogether.
The girls have got slightly shorter shorts than they should have maybe sometimes, and you know, they've got slightly less clothes than maybe they should have, but you know, I just think it adds to the sort of the glamour of it all. Yesterday on set we did Brazil, and obviously there were lots of girls in bikini tops, and we had samba dancers, and I've never seen as many people on set as yesterday.
Of course, it all helps. The wonderful clothes, the extras, all that glamour that we needed for the Formula One world in the 70s was there. It really looked amazing.
For me as a director, I want to try to create this really cinematic, visceral experience for the audiences that helps them kind of understand what it's like to be there, and put the audience into that world of Formula One in the mid-70s in a way that was very, very authentic.
Background action. He's coming into the home stretch now. He's going to finish the race. He's going to make it. And victory.
I'm a big movie fan. Not only have I dedicated my life to making them, I love going to them, and it seems harder than ever to find something that really feels fresh and original.
I think there are elements here of a Ron Howard movie, and at the same time, I think it feels nothing like a Ron Howard movie. In terms of delivering a really big and compelling mainstream cinematic experience, I think in that sense, it's a Ron Howard movie. I think that it is more visceral and raw and experimental and edgy than anything Ron's made before.
He's someone I've wanted to work with, for years, and most of the films that I grew up on, I didn't even realise, but were his.
Ron tackles real life people and situations better than any director, I think, working today, from the mathematician in A Beautiful Mind to space in Apollo to Backdraft, the fire department. He's very, very good at capturing the mood, capturing an environment. And I think it's quite exciting that he didn't really know an awful lot about Formula One coming to it. And he's taken us to places that no other director, I think, would have taken us to.
Action!
I really needed to approach the movie, wanted to approach the movie with a sort of an indie aesthetic. The way we were going to be able to afford to recreate this world, it meant we all had to make every dollar count, every decision meaningful.
He was surrounded by a lot of very progressive, on-the-edge guys from the independent filmmaking world, particularly in the UK. That, I think, really inspired him, and he could bring a lot to them, and they could bring a lot to him. It was a thrill watching him at work. He looked like a 20-year-old boy at work on this movie.
Every day was this kind of mad sprint. This was not a movie that could be made methodically, systematically. It was more something you had to start a ball rolling each day and then somehow capture it and then move on, because this was going to be the only day that we could have those cars or this 70s location that we desperately needed to have, or this set of actors at this particular moment. It was just one of those kinds of schedules. And I think that energized all of us. And I think everyone was creatively charged.
Ron once told me that he's very comfortable in two places: at home with his family and on the set working. He said, otherwise, I don't know. But he said, those two places, I feel really comfortable. And I think it's true. You see him come on, you see him get to work, and he's just fired up, ready to go. It just means everything to him, and I think it really fires up the troops. He sets such a good example. He's got a really strong, obviously an incredibly strong work ethic, and I think it's contagious.
I watch him very closely in the way that he interacts with his crew. Just endless respect for everyone around him, and never losing his cool. I've never experienced anything like it. It's great. I feel so safe in his hands. He's a great captain, and I think that's why so many people want to work with him over and over.
I started my relationship with Ron Howard my first day out of college. By chance, I started working on the film that was Ron's first directorial job, Grand Theft Auto, and I had the best time of my life. And I've been working, I've done all his pictures since then. Rush is actually my 17th film for Ron.
Todd is always a talent who loves to and thrives most when he's wearing more than one hat. I even gave him a hat one time with like 3 or 4 bills because he was doing all those jobs on the same movie. He's been a production designer, he's been a director, he's a producer, line producer, he's done some writing. He's a very creative guy, and the collaboration has been a lot of fun over the years. We've solved a lot of cinematic problems together over the years, and it's gratifying. This one's challenging. I think we'll remember this one.
He's one of those people who, thankfully, is as good a person as he is a director. It's much easier to work with people who you want to be around, and someone is inspiring. You want to do the work for them, but also every time you sort of hold back a bit, he's there to sort of challenge you, and he knows if he can squeeze something else out of it, he's right there to push it.
The experience of making the movie reminded me of 2 projects of mine. It was sort of the attention to detail and the realistic human drama of Apollo 13 came to mind. We really wanted to capture this world in an authentic way, try to allow audiences to understand what the dangers were, and that was exciting. The making of it also reminded me of Backdraft, because I wanted to put the audience into the fires in Backdraft, and it was nerve-wracking every single day because the price you pay for trying to get the camera in the place it needs to be and get the intensity of whatever's going on, whether it's the fires there or the cars racing in Rush, there's becomes an element of risk, attached, and it's calculated risk. Fortunately, no one was hurt making Rush, but those cars did start spinning out and breaking down and losing control, and you know, with all of our care and professionalism, I was as relieved to finally wrap on the last day of shooting Rush as I had been on the last day with Backdraft.
61 days, we are done. Thank you very, very much. That is a picture wrap on Rush. Well done, everybody. Have a great holiday. Congratulations.
I'm very proud of Rush, and I'm also very proud of the way everyone committed themselves to trying to do a difficult thing, which was recreate a time and a place that was dynamic, cool, and very unique. And it was a really exciting filmmaking journey, and I hope that finds its way through the screen to the audience.
In Formula One, it was just accepted, rather like in gladiatorial entertainment, you know, that there would be death every season. To be a Formula One, you know, driver willing to risk death in the way that people were in those days, you had to be a fairly defiant, hot-headed character who really believed in yourself. You had to go into those races thinking, other people might die, I'm not going to die. Otherwise you wouldn't get in the car. That requires almost a gambler's perspective, I think, where you think you can beat the odds. And the kind of people that become gamblers are driven, self-assured young men.
It's to my advantage to race here today, because I'm quicker than all of you.
Fine. Then let's race.
It's a great rivalry story. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, or Borg McEnroe. You know, it's one of those great rivalry stories that sometimes happens in sports. In that 1976 season, it really bubbled over. The intensity of the season, the drama of it, really wound up pitting these two guys against each other. I think there was always respect, but this will to win was driving both of these guys.
Yeah, that wind you can feel is me breathing down your neck. Next time I'll have you.
James Hunt surprised everybody. Although he had tremendous raw skill, he had, you know, an Achilles heel.
James Hunt so epitomized that 70s freewheeling period. A renowned ladies' man, unrepentant playboy, and had the talent to still put himself in the car and go like hell.
He behaved in life much like he behaved on the track. He was incredibly reckless and kind of plowed through life like a kamikaze pilot. He just went for it.
For him, it was a kind of an expression of his intensity, his rage. He was in it for the adrenaline. He was in it for the thrill.
Hump the shunt. Because he would, you know, shunt people off the track. Or shunt, I think is a reference to car crashes. If there was a tiny bit of a gap, which, you know, the probability of him getting through was this much, he'd still take that.
We've had very few Formula One world champions, but he was a particularly conspicuous and glorious example of one because of his good looks and his charisma. He was used a lot in advertising as well, so he was a superstar. He was a superstar.
The press loved him, and the women loved him, and the guys envied him, including Lauda.
Niki's a tricky character. He's an intelligent man, intolerant of fools, much more clean living. I know that he was the first driver ever to have a masseur and a nutritionist, and you know, he brought things that presumably they all do now into the sport.
Niki Lauda felt like he had to fight for every advantage that he could gain. He was a remarkable technician. He worked brilliantly with the engineering team and the mechanics. His success depended on a kind of almost a melding of man and machine.
Niki would have no shame at all in getting there at 6 in the morning, walking the track, putting in the hours more than someone else. Whereas James just turned up, probably still drunk, certainly would smoke dope before getting in the car, would probably have had sex within half an hour of getting into the car. If he could have sex while driving the car, I'm sure he would have done so.
Two different drivers trying to achieve greatness for two very different reasons. And that all kind of came to a head in that 1976 season in a way that was very noticeable to everyone. You know, it was a difficult, transformative period of time for James emotionally. The nation was looking at him as someone to kind of, you know, be a standard bearer. I'm not sure that he was entirely comfortable with the demands that he was putting on himself and that others were maybe putting on him at that point. I think there was a lot to try to come to terms with and reconcile.
Some drivers, you know, would sit there and try and meditate before races and lower their heart rate and breathing exercises, and he apparently would just be pacing back and forth and cigarette, and you know, would throw up and be wound up. And I mean, he partly believed that was the best way to sort of, you know, to get the best performance out of himself, but also I think it was pretty unconscious at times too. It was just something he did or something he couldn't control, and whether he ended up being a race car driver or whatever, there was a need to sort of express something.
He was quite tense because he was also fearing the fact that he might be hurt, that he might get killed or whatever, you know, because it happened quite often then. And so he was not totally at home within himself when he came to that point. So and he was totally mesmerized by the race as such, and he had to win.
Lauda takes the flag here at Kyalami.
The season where I started well off being world champion the year before. So I ran into the season with a perfect car, Ferrari, very competitive. I won most of the races. Hunt was always there racing me. The Nürburgring accident happened and suddenly I was caught nearly dead. I was fighting for my life to stay alive. And then I decided 5 weeks later to try it again, which was tough for me and everybody.
There were a lot of personal reasons that he was driven to carry on, even though you talk to him and he'll just say, well, I still knew I was in the championship hunt and I didn't want to lose that opportunity. But you go a little further. He was afraid if he didn't drive again that year, he would never ever drive again. And the terror of that crash is something that plagued him, you know, on into his career and life. To this day, talking about it in depth is like any trauma, is something that's painful for Niki. But he really opened himself up to Peter Morgan, to myself, and to Daniel Brühl, and I think we were able to capture some of that and get it on the screen in a way that's very truthful and moving. Among his sort of chief rivals in a long, long storied career in Formula One, he's a 3-time champion. He's a Hall of Famer. Hunt is among the elite drivers that he thinks he ever faced off with.
Niki and James were friends out of the car. They were, of course, intense rivals on the track and intense rivals off the track because of their teams, but their personal relationship was good. Niki spent time in our garage. Niki's command of English was very good, not so good in Italian, I think. So it was easier for him to come and talk to us than it was to talk to the Italians. And his English was so good that he could do what's called repartee. He could have word games with us, and so he enjoyed this. He would come and have a chat to us, and we'd fence backwards and forwards with the English. And he and James were friends.
James was one of those guys that you could tell everyone, they just appreciated him. They kind of adored him for just being who he was. As reckless as he could be, as maddening as he could be, he was always honest. And so was Lauda. And it's another thing that they share. They weren't always easy, but they were true to who they were. And there's something very, very rare about that. A lot of high-achieving people are willing to do anything, compromise almost anything, to get there. And both these men had as much ambition and as much drive and as much will to win as anyone, but they actually wouldn't compromise. Well, that's kind of rare. And that's one of the discoveries I think I made that made me sort of deepen my appreciation of them. And I hope that found its way into the film as well.
I'll see you on race day, champ.
You will. Champ.
Where the hell are we going? I promise it'll be worth it. Just keep them closed. Wait for it. Wait for it. There. What do you say?
She's Formula One.
Yes, she is superstar.
When you sit in the cockpit of a Formula One car, there's all this power around you. It's this visceral, palpable sort of thing. We were very fortunate in that we were able to sort of go back into the archives and try to find tracks and so forth, but mostly what we did was we were able to record the cars from that period because there are these owners who have those cars. They not only have them, these guys race them.
The big challenge always, right from when I first heard about the film and then wanted to do it, was, oh, hang on a minute, wow, we need to get period Formula One cars. It could not get more specialised than that. We approached the groups that do that. These guys are owned by people who run a team of mechanics in their cars, and they travel the world. They go to all the same places that we've shot and people race at now. So the cars, A, exist, and B, are in running order and have people who know how to make them go and make them work for us. So, you know, we're immensely grateful that all the guys that own these cars and involved in that sector said, yeah, we'd like to be involved.
They generally have two questions for me when I say, can we put your car in the movie? They say, number one, can I drive the car? And we say, yeah, fine. Number two is, can my girlfriend be in the film? And the answer to that is also yes. Today we've got 14 of them, and we've had the two six-wheel Tyrrells together for the first time, I believe, since 1977. So that has been a big challenge. But there are a lot of petrol heads working on this film, as you can probably tell. So for them, this is a dream. It's tough, but at the same time, it's a real pleasure for them. The guys driving the cars are precision drivers led by Nicky Faulkner and his team. So these are guys that do this for a living. They're real experts. And I think it's quite nice for them getting paid to drive cars faster on a circuit every day.
The 76 F1 cars were a lot rawer than they are now. The aerodynamics was a very new thing. All the cars had a different sort of power. They were only sort of 450 horsepower in comparison to the 900 that they have now. They had wider tyres in 76, so there was quite a lot of action in the corners, and they'd sometimes drift and slide through, a lot more movement in the cars. But the racing was a lot more dynamic as well. You had a lot more fighting going on. Overtaking was a bit more normal because you'd have failures or people would miss gears because they're manual gear shifts instead of paddle gear shifts. So you'd see a lot more action in certain areas of the racetrack, and there'd be battles going on all the way through.
This is a mock-up of the 1976 BRM car. The construction of the car, as you can see, is mainly metal. There's no composite materials on these cars. Formula One teams were really experimenting with downforce, and these wings were more sort of for show rather than actual downforce. They did create a little bit of downforce, but nothing like they do today. They do say it's an old adage that the Formula One car can pretty much drive upside down at 150, 160 miles an hour because it creates its own weight in downforce at that speed.
In the Formula One cars, where you really get to understand how much power these guys had at their fingertips or at their feet. And I mean, you know, you're this far from the ground, you're strapped in, it's a little cocoon in there, or a coffin even, you know, as it said in the script at one point. Oh, it's comfy, isn't it?
Quite a barren cockpit compared to today's cars. Notice that the construction is a lot wider, there's a lot more room for the driver because they had fuel tanks left and right of the driver, and in some cases behind. A lot of the cars, if they did crash, they'd often see fire, and today, thank God, we never see fire because the fuel is contained behind the driver.
No one would sacrifice anything at that point for safety. If the best place to put the fuel tank was right under the driver's seat, that's where it went. And, you know, a lot of people caught fire and died because of that. And everyone knew it was dangerous. And yet, if you moved it over, it ruined the balance of the car. No one either the mechanics or engineers, or certainly the drivers, ever wanted to compromise the potential for some incremental advantage, some tenth of a second that could be gained.
What horsepower are you getting? 490?
No, 450.
Well, it's not enough. Needs to be 500, and the engine needs to be 20 kilo lighter.
One reason why it was so dangerous is the cars had outgrown the circuits, and but no one wanted to back off the horsepower, and the tracks weren't being, sort of adjusted to make them safer yet. So there was this very dangerous period.
They didn't have the wind tunnels working 24 hours a day to just scientifically nail it down. A lot of it was done with just sheer intuition. And I think that made it more fascinating, made it more interesting. The fact that people were dying nearly every season was awful, but at the same time, that's pretty exciting. You don't know whether you're going to see a terrible crash or not. It's a very romantic period in Formula One.
One of the things they say about the 70s in the Formula One world is that's when sex was safe and driving was dangerous.
It's a pretty insane time. It's akin to the Rolling Stones during that period going on the road. It's a traveling circus. It's just complete city-to-city madness. And at the same time, true life and death situations.
There's this global, endless sort of carnival that moved from country to country and culture to culture, but it was this self-contained world of advertising and cars and glamour and the media. And the media was changing and shifting, and this was sort of the first generation of drivers that were really becoming major public figures, and their lives were the stuff of soap opera and tabloid coverage.
Well, it's all very amicable. I've found a way to be single and have an ex-wife without it costing me a penny. Just got to go down as the biggest win of my career.
My recollection, obviously it depends on your age, but they were much more charismatic personalities than they are today. It was less about the mechanics and the engineering for us as an audience and more about the personalities. So it felt that they were larger than life and kind of playboyish and sexy and interesting.
I think in the 70s, and I think why everyone, even all Formula One fans nowadays look back on the 70s so affectionately, is because it started with the possibility of death imminently. And the ripple of that stone went out, and it just infected the way everyone behaved, which was, let's live for today. So I think that the drivers, well, if they're going to maybe die tomorrow, then they want to probably get laid today.
This frisson was there all the time. This definitely gave them an edge on life. They knew that it was quite possible to get killed, so you had to get on with it. Not a rehearsal, and so some of them, particularly James, were definitely getting on with life.
These drivers were pretty much akin to rock stars. Had that same kind of glamour, and you had the same hangers-on and essentially the same groupies.
It was a classic story of all the flight attendants that came in to Japan and were staying at the same hotel he was at. And this is just before his big race at Fuji for the World Championship. And I think, spent the night with each of them at different times, or at the same time, I don't know.
That's what was going on in the late 70s. It was happening. There was everybody up to all sorts, and it was incredibly glamorous. And it's almost untouchable, as opposed to nowadays when one feels sort of celebrities kind of mix in as a different. It was something utterly untouchable.
Of course, Happy Days was becoming a #1 show around the world, just when this story's taking place. And so when I hear the wild stories about Formula One, in retrospect, not entirely alien to my own understanding of what the world of celebrity was like in the 70s. The tail end of the sexual revolution, pre-AIDS, when there was sort of nothing to fear and everything to celebrate.
You lived in a different way, and I think you probably drove in a different way. You conducted yourself in a different way. And wrap that up with the fact that they were in an age of permissiveness. it was, that no wonder everyone looks back and thinks that was a good time to be alive and a good time to be a racer.
Tell us, James, what are you going to do now? I shall be getting drunk.
Herr Lauda, ich bedauere, dass unser Haus seine Sponsorentätigkeit für Sie einstellen muss. Ihr, Herr Großvater, unser Aufsichtsratsvorsitzender, hat persönlich angerufen, um uns zu untersagen.
Ausdrücklich zu untersagen.
Die Geschäftstätigkeit mit Ihnen fortzusetzen.
Gut. Dann brauche ich mir das Geld halt aus. Von der Konkurrenz.
And in return for your 2.5 million Austrian shillings, we'll give you a car, mechanics, and a place on the team as number 3 driver. There will, of course, be bonuses for any podium finish.
Who's the number 1 driver?
Clay Regazzoni. You will, of course, defer to him at all times.
Why would I defer to him if I'm paying his wages?
Clay is a proven winner at the highest level. He's a good man. Quite frankly, he could teach you a thing or two.
Maybe. Maybe not. There's one other thing. I made it very clear that my mechanics work only for me, no one else.
I'm sorry, now that is out of the question. We have a policy at BRM that all drivers are to share all information equally.
Okay. And this is something I cannot sign.
We'll have our lawyers amend it.
Soon as it's drafted, send it to me.
The money?
You get it. On signature, as agreed. See you at winter testing.
Feels like a totally new car. It's incredible. What did he do?
You'll have to ask him. We're not allowed to tell anyone.
Due to the horrific nature of the accident that happened yesterday and indeed the tragic outcome, there are muted celebrations from the 3 podium finishers, Ronnie Peterson, James Hunt and Carlos Reutemann, out of respect to the driver's family.
commendatore? Dici che la macchina è meravigliosa, un capolavoro. Avrebbe qualche suggerimento per una o due piccole modifiche? Niente di che. Grazie.
I don't know. No, you don't understand. He's messing with my head.
Well, what did you expect? That Niki was just going to give you the championship lying down?
Of course not.
He's a fighter. He's the toughest son of a bitch I've ever met. He's going to throw everything at you. He's going to play every mind trick there is in the book. And if I'd had an accident like he had, if I was in the position he's in, I would be doing exactly the same. So you just got to ignore all that, go out there and beat him. God knows you're good enough to. You do know that, don't you?
Yes, I do. I have to go, Bubbles. I'll speak to you later. Bye.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. We've come for the party.
What party?
The party we were told was going on in room 557.
Who sent you here?
A man. On the telephone. He didn't give his name.
Right, this man on the telephone, did he speak with an accent?
Yes. Oh, German. German.
German.
Okay, I'm afraid it was a joke. I'm sorry, ladies. Any other time, just not tonight.
Pity.
Yes, it is. Wait! Maybe one drink.
Oh, really?
Come on.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Hey.
Hey. Bis gleich.
Can't see the mountain. The locals here believe if you can see the mountain in the morning, it brings good luck. Oh. Oh.
All right, let's go. Grab the air. You right, kid?
Schluss noch.